Servus, and welcome to another episode of the Pro Hockey Pod. If you're wondering if Hare sounds a little different, you're right. I'm filling in for him. My name's Josh Juris. I've been mentioned a couple times on this podcast. I've been a guest on this podcast. Grew up with Andrew, and I think it's time for him to get his chance to tell his story. No better time to do it in episode 31. That was his number growing up, so I know he was, adamant about getting his chance for the episode number 31. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest, the host of this podcast, Andrew Hare.
You're just a natural there. Natural intro. I love it. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mr. Juice. Yeah, as we said, it was always kind of the plan there for 31. I thought I've had an interesting path and some things I can share about my journey, and hopefully it can influence anyone listening. So happy to be here. It's weird being on the other side, but excited.
Yeah, for sure. I think if there is a blueprint for a route that's taking you different places, and not every person's route is the same in the game of hockey, I think you're definitely a good example of that. I know how much you love the game, and I think what you're doing with this podcast and giving back to young people and, well, anyone really listening, I think it's been great, and you've done a good job with this. So I'm interested to hear your side of things, and we'll get going through it. So as you like to do normally, we take it back to the beginning. You were born in Peterborough, Canada. Is that where you grew up and first learned to love the game?
Yeah, born and raised in Peterborough. Earliest memories, like most Canadian kids, is getting on the skates real early. I think I was 3 when I started skating, and obviously Peterborough has the OHL team, the Peterborough Petes, and my parents had season tickets. So ever since I was born, that was every Thursday. The town comes around that team. It's really the only thing to do there. The Petes in the winter, and then the lacrosse team in the spring there. And I can remember, going to those games every Thursday and just like idolizing those guys, thinking it was the NHL. And yeah, that's kind of where I fell in love with the game. And I was fortunate enough to have great parents who put a lot of time into, whether it's taking me to practice early, or my dad who would make the backyard rinks back when you could do that, when it was cold enough every winter. And, he'd be out there early before work when he got back from work, and just gave me basically every avenue to start learning to love the game.
Yeah, the typical Canadian upbringing, I guess. It's nice you were able to get out there on the ponds and stuff. I know Peterborough, the climate usually helps with that there too. And then you decided you were going to be a goalie at one point. So when was that decision made? And were there any influences behind that?
Yeah, that decision, I don't know where I fell in love with the position. Maybe it was the getting your mask painted, and I joked like I always wanted to when I was a defenseman before, and my parents will let me do that. It's funny, they actually tell me to this day that I was a very good defenseman, saw the ice really well, and they're curious to see how I would have done. But I think I made the right choice. But yeah, my dad was a goalie too, so I don't know if that had like a little bit of influence too. But they had a rule that I wasn't allowed to turn goalie until I was 10 years old. Don't know why that was the number, but I remember as soon as I turned 10, it was immediately, I want to be a goalie. We went and got all the gear, and yeah, that journey began, and right away off the hop, just kind of with the minor hockey path there, I had been playing AAA defenseman, changed to goalie, and went to tryouts that year. And I just started, so I definitely wasn't good enough. And I remember the coach calling me into a meeting and being like, you have a choice to make here. I'm 10 years old. And, if you go back to playing D right now, I'll take you on the AAA team. If you're going to stay goalie, you're getting cut and you're going to AA. And I remember going home that night, and it was really tough for me at 10 years old to make that decision. But I just felt that I really wanted to be a goalie, and, had to make that sacrifice. And, evidently I got cut, went to AA, and probably was one of the best things for me, because I would play one game goalie, and then the next game I would play out. And so I was kind of rotating, which was cool for me at 10 years old. But yeah, that's where the goalie dream started.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen Yeah, I know firsthand you were a good D man, and anytime you got the chance to get play out, you know, your competitiveness always came through. You're always a pretty elite defenseman. So I think it was a good choice though to stay with goalie. You obviously carved out a pretty good career for yourself. Um, I will say, goalies do have a rep for being a little on the odd side. I think you go against that stereotype. I think there's certain things, but I think for the most part you're pretty normal dude. But yeah, let's just get into that. So you were in Peterborough. How long were you in Peterborough? You made the move over to Burlington. I think we were all 12 years old. So just going through that minor hockey, what was the differences? Like, did you notice uh, between Peterborough and then Burlington as you went through the ranks there?
Yeah, so I moved to Burlington when I was 12. My dad ended up getting a new job, so just one of those decisions we all had to go. And I was sad to leave Peterborough, but if I'm being quite honest, it probably saved my hockey career, because when I was playing in Peterborough, even when I got back to the AAA team of being a goalie, the other goalie was the coach's son. So it was kind of we definitely split games, but it was just, I think going forward down the road when we got into our like later teens there, I probably wouldn't have got as much ice time and development. So yeah, going to Burlington, the biggest change I noticed was, I think, just the depth. In Peterborough, it's a smaller town, so it was pretty sure every year that most guys were going to make AAA who had been on the team the year before. And in Burlington, I remember right away, like, we had those tryout camps, and it was 100 kids out there, and I was like, oh my god. And I was never known for being a good practice goalie, so I remember the first year getting a AA letter, and I was like, oh man, like, here we go again. And luckily I had befriended you, and your dad was the assistant coach on the AAA team and ended up giving me a chance to come to the final camp there. And I think he pushed really hard for me to be on the team. And without him, I don't think I would have been that first year. But it's definitely, as I said, there was a lot more depth in all positions, and obviously it's pulling from a greater pool of the GTA.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's good. I remember we had some pretty good teams there in minor hockey with the Eagles growing up. Pretty good dynamic duo of you and what was it, Drew Fielding, I think, and then Volpe. Is that who we had?
Started with Connor Lyons the first year, and then Volpe came in the rest of the way that I was there. And then I think Fielding came up when I ended up going to junior. But he was, like, just speaking of those guys, like, very, like, Connor obviously was a very good goalie with us. Volpe progressed every year, and Drew, I kind of got the short end of the stick, I think, at times, having to go down to AA because there was only 2 goalie spots, and he easily could have played AAA a lot earlier than he did. But that's just, again, speaking of the talent we had in Burlington, at least at the goalie position, from my experience, there was a lot of guys, and Daniel Savelli was there before me. And yeah, I mean, if you can have that many good goalies in a Burlington age group, I don't think it's a negative.
No, for sure, for sure. It's always good to, I guess, have competition and stuff, especially at that age. So I think we were fortunate to have really good teams, and I think we still have friendships to this day of, like, from those teams. We know all those guys, and I think Burlington was a really good minor hockey situation, and I think it still is to this day. So going through that, I think you, out of anyone, the OHL was number one for you. And I know I've heard you mention a couple times on this podcast that until you met me and my family, I don't think NCAA was really on the radar. And growing up in Peterborough, you obviously being a Pete's fan, that was the what you knew best. And during that draft year, both of us, we didn't end up getting drafted. We had, I think, 7 or 8 guys from our draft year team that did end up going. And I remember being not hurt because I was, I was still developing at that age, and I was just a little guy. And I obviously had the path of NCAA, having my dad gone through, and having that at the forefront for me. So I think you were a bit more discouraged at that when you didn't get drafted. Just talk about that and what that was like going through it. Obviously, it was a big moment in your career where you wanted this to happen so bad, and it didn't. And how did you handle this situation? How was the development from there?
Yeah, definitely. was a crazy moment. As you mentioned, it like growing up in Peterborough, OHL was everything. I wanted so badly to get drafted to the OHL, especially the Petes. Thought it'd be so cool to go back there. And, I think when we were growing up, especially, that was for the Canadians, unless we had someone like, yourself with your dad who went the other route, you really didn't hear much about it. Like, so it was, if you don't get to the OHL, then it was basically, all right, well, you're going to be done hockey, go to university, go get a real job, whatever. So yeah, I didn't have the greatest year. Um, I think this will be a common theme through this where, uh, you know, I think that summer there was a lot more training that needed to be done off the ice that I didn't take so seriously, and then it evidently went into my season. And yeah, didn't get drafted. I remember being at Cougars camp when that happened, and I'm there with a lot of guys on our team. Ryan Moore. I remember being there, Jake Gendon, guys like that, and they're getting drafted, and I'm focusing in between sessions, just checking my phone, telling my parents like, hey, anything. And I remember your dad, I think he was scouting for Barrie that year, and he texted me in like the 12th round, and they had already taken Michael Hutchinson, who obviously went on to have a great career, still playing to this day, NHL and AHL. And he asked me if they wanted to take me, if I would come, like, or be happy to be taken. And I just said, yeah, no, because I knew I wasn't going to get a chance. And I remember, having some emotional moment on my bed and my parents coming up and talking to me and just being like, if you want to quit hockey, like, we support you. Uh, you've done everything, but if you still want to keep going and, kind of prove people wrong, we support that too. And evidently, I went with option two. And yeah, the next year, got to play midget. Was very happy to go back and, you know, back with guys like yourself. And I remember Volpe, who we brought up, he was drafted by Mississauga. And that year, they had some goalie injuries. So he ended up going up to Mississauga for basically the whole year. So it actually benefited me so much because I played, normally in minor hockey, you're doing 50-50. I probably played 85% of the games in midget, and that went really big into my development going forward.
Yeah, no, I remember that being real tough on you. I remember after the draft, like going over to your house and you were devastated. I remember just sitting on your porch there and we were just talking about it. And I know how much that meant to you, but like you said, I think it was your first real adversity where it was a bit of an eye opener. And like you said, you might not have the year you wanted, but I think it's something I think maybe that's where believe started. I think that's what you put on or prove people wrong. You start putting that on your helmet. Was it after that year?
It was after the draft was when prove people wrong came, and then believe
Yeah.
came later down the road. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
you know
And I think that's stuck with you ever since. You put on every one of your masks, and I think that lit a little bit of a fire and a little chip on your shoulder going forward. So, and that brings up the question. I know I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and you talk about it with your guests because everyone's in different stages of their development in their life where not getting drafted to the OHL might not necessarily be the worst thing. Like, you have time to develop, you go play midget, and then you were able to make the Cougars and develop there. So talk a bit about that little debate, I guess, between the OHL and their major junior versus the NCAA. Because I obviously just personally, I wasn't ready, and it was the best thing for me because I don't think I hit puberty really till I was like 17, 18. So it was like I wouldn't have had a chance at that OHL level to go play as a 16-year-old. So it gave me a chance to just develop, hone my skills, play, and then I was able to play later. So for you, what are your thoughts on that major junior versus the NCAA?
well, first and foremost, I think it obviously depends on everyone's situation. It varies, but for myself, I just, not being drafted, I'd already wasted 1 year to not play or of eligibility, I'll say. And I remember I went to two camps the next year as a free agent. Not going to say where, but the one team I went to main camp with, they offered me a spot after 48 hours. Like, sign, you're going to be one of our two goalies. And I remember feeling so like good about it, and like, I've made it, like, where I've come for a year from before. And at the same time, I just talked to my dad and he was like, well, he's like, chances of you being a starter realistically when you have a 20-year-old guy ahead of you is probably slim. So he's like, technically, you're gonna have 2 years where you're not being a starter, and then it really kind of boils down to, how many years are you gonna play? You only have 3 years eligibility left. The last one's an overage year, so you might not even get the chance there. So technically, you have 2 years, and you know, I also wasn't ready. I think we both kind of matured later, and I was a gamer, but I didn't understand what it took to the day in and day out of going to practice, trying to get better every day, and so I ended up going back to junior, and made the Cougars, and you know, ended up playing a lot there for the next 2 years. And that's just kind of where the teams from school started reaching out, and you started to get that interest. And I think just, for me and for goalies, I feel like we really develop later. So, if you can go to whether it's school, at the 19, 20, 21, I think it benefits you down the road. And even to this day, I went to school and I probably still went too early. I probably went a year too early, but you know, obviously hearing all the stories from your dad about how great it was, it definitely kind of helped me when I was playing junior to kind of put the OHL dream behind and kind of focus on, okay, I want to get a full ride hopefully and get my school paid for and go enjoy 4 years of American University.
Yeah. Well, and that you did. I think before we kind of move on, I think we can talk about those two Burlington Cougar years. I remember I got to play with you one of those years, right? Yeah, and then, well, actually, you went. I went to play major midget year, and then I got to watch you in the Cougars. That's correct, right? Yeah, and I remember that year you were just lights out, and then I joined you the year after. Yeah, just talk about how the Burlington Cougars. You can just touch on that briefly, and in the middle there, you got invited to go to the World Junior A Challenge to play for Team Canada East, which is, anytime you get to throw on the Canada jersey, it's an unbelievable feat. And I know you had a great experience there. So just talk about those 2 years of development with the Cougars. I remember personally how that was a huge, I think, couple of years for you and your confidence. And yeah, and the World Junior A Challenge.
Yeah, the Cougars for me were great. My first year I was there with Oliver Wren, who was a 21-year-old going into his last year. And I remember being at camp and just, you know, after camp, they told me basically, like, do you want to play here? Like, you have a spot on this team. And I remember, I forget who the GM was, Barry Rice. Does that sound familiar? Was that his name? Or
Yeah, so yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
and he asked me, he goes, so how many games do you expect to play this year? And I was just like so humble. I was just like, oh, like 12, 15. Like, I was just so in the mindset of, yeah, I need to wait my turn. I'm a rookie kind of thing. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, really? Like, that's it? And I remember that kind of like hit hard with me. And, evidently I ended up becoming the starter pretty early on. And those 2 years were awesome for my development. It's great to play at home. You know, being in high school, like, people would come to our games and stuff. And the next day, if you played well, like, they'd be talking about it. Like, it was kind of like a little mini pro thing for me. Like, I felt like a superstar at times. And as you said, I did well. I think it was a good league for me. And yeah, the second year I got to play in the World Junior A Challenge, which anytime you get to represent your country, I think, whatever tournament it is awesome. And that was a whole nother level. I was out there with guys like Brandon Peary, Riley Smith, who just won a Stanley Cup. The other goalie I had was Sean Sermon, who went, NCAA after. Like, we had a really good team, and it was cool being out there. We were treated amazing. Played 5 or 6 games, luckily ended up winning the bronze medal, which was huge for us. And it definitely got my confidence going for that second half of that year. And, definitely made some memories that I won't forget.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. That's really cool. You got to experience that, and bronze medal for to show for it. That's cool. So, you ended up getting a D1 scholarship to Niagara University. We can kind of tie all these together here. And 2 years into that stint, you decided it was a better situation for you in Oswego. At Oswego State. Did you have any offers, or did you go on any visits before Niagara? And just kind of talk about your whole college career as a whole. I think Like you said, looking back, you might have not been fully ready to experience the college, um, life, whether it be on the ice and off the ice. I think maybe another year of development might have been better, but I think you got to learn that. And in the end, moving on to another school in a better situation, ended up, like you say, maybe save your career, maybe a bit of your mental health. So just talk about that, and and what that was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, crazy. Yeah, crazy experience, I would say. So first, I went on a couple of visits. So I went to Niagara University. It was 50 minutes from just over the border from my house. Um, I thought it was an up and coming program. Was sold a lot of things there, so I really liked that visit. And then I also went to Canisius, who a buddy of ours, Corey Conacher, had just been there in his first year. Carl Hudson was also there, and did a tour there. And I was also talking a little bit to RPI, but like those big schools like RPIs and all them, and they don't commit to guys like me early. And I learned really quick that the reason I was getting these offers from the, I don't want to say weaker division, but definitely the lighter division of NCAA, was because these guys need to get you before the bigger schools notice you. And just kind of, yeah, I was young, and I was offered a full ride, so I thought of how much money that would save my parents on school. And they told me I was going to be given a chance to be the number one, and that I was their future. And yeah, so I committed there real early, my first year junior, I think in November. So I had known for basically 2 seasons where I was going. And um going into college, I was for all the goalies in going into college that year, so whatever my recruiting class of going in at 09 10 season, I was the fourth ranked goalie of everyone going in. So that concluded all the big schools. So I was, had a lot of pressure, I would say, or a lot of expectations. And just like we talked about before, like I wasn't ready. I didn't understand. Like I would go to the gym to say I went to the gym. I didn't go to the gym to get better. Like if there was something really hard at times, like I would almost like fake it. And that's just, I'm being totally honest about it. And I hope the kids listening that, you know, you need to work hard, and it starts at an early age. And I went into college, I'd gotten away in junior on talent. I was a really talented goalie. And if I had worked harder, I probably would have had a longer career. And I thought I would get away with it in college. And then you're there with guys who are 24, 25 and jacked, and come from 3 years of playing college before and knew what it takes. And I was just kind of overwhelmed with everything. And um yeah, and then for Niagara, like it lasted a year and a half. And I know the program has changed now, since I've been there. It's been almost 10 years. But yeah, just kind of everything I was told going in really changed the day I started there. Kind of a lot of to be honest, like a lot of mental abuse I went through. And I think that was still the time when that was the norm. And didn't play much. I was on a full ride. I was supposed to be the future, and other goalies who were paying their way to go to school, they're just and it were kind of fillers, were playing over me, getting chances before me. And I was kind of like, okay, so I guess I just got to keep waiting. And evidently I didn't deserve it. But then yeah, I remember if anyone who knows my dad, for him to get involved with something is completely rare. Normally he's telling you, you gotta, there's something you can do better. And I remember my dad emailing the coach being like what you have done to my son is completely unprofessional. Like the stories I've heard, like, how do you consider that fair? How do you consider that an elite program, or you want to be an elite program? And just said like, Andrew's not coming back. And I was probably going to get cut after that year anyways. They had a tendency back then to do that. After 2 years, if it didn't work out, you just get your school paid for, but you didn't play hockey anymore. And Oswego had a lot of guys we played against in junior, right? So a lot of like Oakville Blades guys were there, like the Luke Moody's, Chris Muses, Tyler Linebrooks, Ferris, Tim Carr, who we played with, was there. And they had just kind of had a goalie that had quit at the start of the year, and then another one was injured. So they were dressing a player as their backup. And I remember Chris Carr's dad, Mike Carr, spoke to the coach and was like, hey, like, you got to get this kid. Like, he's really good. He's just kind of going through something, or, he needs a fresh start. And yeah, I went there, and the first year, like the second half of that first year, so my second year was kind of the same as Niagara. I couldn't find the game. I just, a lot in my head. And I remember going home that summer, and my dad basically sitting me down and was like, look, like, give it everything you have this summer. If you aren't a starter by the end of this year, then you're going to work all next summer and just get ready for the work world going into your 4th year. And I really took that to heart, and I didn't want my career to end, and I really wanted to play pro at some point. So I buckled down that summer. Going into my 3rd year, I got some luck and got the starting job with an injury, and then kind of took it from there and ended up having, last 2 years, we lost both times in the finals. And so, great experience. The D3 stigma definitely doesn't exist. Like, that program and many other programs should be D1, but they just don't want to fund. But I had a great time there. And as you said it, when you go to a dark place mentally, and, whether it's like having mental breakdowns or just, getting upset or not believing in yourself, Oswego definitely saved me, which obviously was for the better. And yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, wow, a lot to unpack there, I think. No, I know it was difficult for you, going through that in Niagara. And it's a bit, it is odd. Like, maybe that is a bit of an old school mentality for you to have to deal with. Well, as you put it, kind of like mental abuse. Well, it might have just been everything combined, but it's just, it's too bad, and you hope that schools, obviously aren't like that. But in the end, you go through experiences, and you go through times in your life where, it makes you better, it makes you stronger. And I think, in the end, you ended up at a great place in Oswego. I just remember how much you loved it there, and how well you played. You were one of the top goalies in the nation. And I know it has the D3 label, but it's really good hockey, and you can really move on. I know a lot of good players that have come out of that league. So you're better off for it, and you're an Oswego State alum, and you're able to get your degree, and that's special in itself. And it led you to bigger and better things, moving us into that. So I think you had, I don't think you wasted much time. You went over to Europe. I remember you had a couple stints in the, that might have been after you went right away, I think, to Europe, right? And I think it started in France, in Morzine. So, let's get into the pro career now. How was your time in France the first 2 seasons, and what was the thought process maybe behind moving to Europe as opposed to trying the North American side of things?
Yeah. Obviously, first, I was very fortunate to finish my degree. So that was always a rule my dad said. He's like, you're getting your school done, and then after that, you can go do what you want, because you'll always have that to look back on or fall back on. So I hired a super agent, your dad, and obviously he had played in Europe a long time. And again, like, just kind of when we went back to the school experiences, your dad raved about, playing in, the DL and in Switzerland and stuff. So obviously that kind of got filled in my head. And when I was done school, so when we had lost, San Francisco had a coast team, and I think there was like 5 games left in the season. They were looking for a goalie, and I wanted to go so bad. And I remember it was between me and another guy, and they ended up taking the other guy, who was, I believe he was at CIS. And I just kind of realized at that point that, I'm undrafted. I have the D3 label, probably going to end up in lower leagues, or I'll be packing suitcases all year long. And I didn't really know if I wanted to do that. So I just said, you know what, I'll go to Europe, because your dad had talked so much about it. And evidently Morzine in France there, great place to live in the French Alps. Played there for 2 years. They gave me a chance, and yeah, it was awesome. Like, that league, France, I don't think is known for its hockey, but a lot of good players there, play against a lot of national team guys. And that was at the point too, when their national team was taking off. Like, they were having really good world championships, putting France back on the map, or on the map for hockey. And yeah, it was awesome. Like, playing pro hockey, I think at any level, you want to enjoy it as much as you can. I wasn't making millions, but it was, where I lived was a postcard. Friends and family visited me, being done every day at 12:31, and, you get the rest of the day to do whatever. So it was great. Really, really have a lot of respect for Morzine. And, obviously, unfortunately, since then, since I've been there, 10 years ago or whatever, they've got relegated a couple leagues, and now I think they're one below the top. So I hope they can get back.
Yeah. I've the French league's a really good league, and it's like you said, it's up and coming. I think. Did you play against Dan, our buddy Dan in Rouen?
I did.
Yeah.
My second year, so our first years were the same pro, and he ended up going to Holland, play in
Yeah.
the Holland League there in Dordrecht or something. I remember I visited him during a break,
Oh,
and
that's great.
yeah, second year he went to Rouen, and yeah,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, like Rouen is a top team every year, and back then when I played, it was a lot different. They only played like 26 games, so it was basically one game a week, and
Yeah.
you play everyone at home and home, and that's your season. Now they play a lot more, but I remember, when we would go to Rouen, if we lost 7-1, that was a win. And you know, luckily I don't think Dan scored on me. I can't remember, but I
Oh,
don't think he did. And then we beat him at home, which was nice. But yeah, like he obviously played 3 years there, won championships. So he would be able to say, like, that's a top organization. He was treated well, and it
yeah.
was
No,
nice playing against him.
yeah, he had nothing but great things. Obviously, I know he's stuck there 4 years. Dan Cowdice, we're talking about. We grew up with him, and he was a Burlington Cougar alum. Always a great player, line mate, and yeah, the French league was great, and he won a championship there. But anyways, then you went to Norway after that. So maybe just talk about the switch to that league. I know, like, when you go to Europe, it's kind of like a ladder. You want to always try and move up the ladder in terms of the league and the caliber. So how did Manglerud come up in Norway? I think, I don't know, maybe at that time, was it maybe a step up, or just you wanted to change the scenery, or what was your thoughts behind signing in Norway, and how was it in Norway?
Yeah, I think it just kind of what you talked about is the ladder. So I had an offer to go back to Morzine for a third year, and I just kind of, you know, wanted to try something else, and kind of, you like, again, I mentioned the World Championship. So Norway, they had every year been doing a bit better than France. So you're kind of thinking like, okay, well, that has to be, a step up in a sense. And it kind of came out last minute, to be honest. Like, I don't think I signed until like June, July, maybe. And similar to Morzine, like a lower budget team that just needed someone. And I was really happy to go there. Ended up meeting one of my buddies, Bryce Reddick. We ended up living together there. That's where we met. And he was with me last year in Selb. And it's I will say this, like, the hockey there was a lot different. It was a lot faster. Um, I felt like it was a big step up. But a great experience again. Country's awesome. Living in Oslo, I mean, it was very expensive. That wasn't the best, but at the same time, it was like a very clean, nice Toronto on the water. Lots of good restaurants, lots of shopping. Awesome. Winter was filled with snow, and the travel to all the games was awesome. Like, we had our farthest bus trip was 2 hours, and then we would fly to one team. So like, it was, you're home every night. I like their schedule too. They play Thursday, Sundays. So it was, play Thursday, then you have a couple days to relax. And yeah, learned a lot there too. Faced a lot of rubber, and you know, it was again another experience where helped me kind of build my game. Um, but then you run into the problems, which a lot of guys do, especially being a goalie, is when you go to these teams that are kind of lower, in terms of pay and stuff, your stats don't replicate, the guys who are playing on top teams. And, that'll lead you to the next part of, my crazy 16-17 season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always funny. There's a fine line, because at the same time, and I know as a goalie, sometimes it's hard not to face a lot of rubber. And you said you faced a lot, but when it's in Europe, and you're trying to, like, a lot of these teams don't have the budgets for scouts, and you can't travel. So a lot of their scouting is done on our old friend, the elite prospects or the hockey DB. So if you're on a lower team, you could still be playing really well, and your stats don't really show for it. And especially as a goalie, I think it's hard. They could automatically just write you off if you have an above 3.35 whatever goals against. So that's where it can be a bit difficult. But at the same time, when you're facing a lot of shots, you're getting you're facing a lot of rubber, and you're getting better. So I mean, there's a bit of a trade-off there. So that's yeah, that leads us into, you know, the 16-17 year. After Norway, I think you held off there for a while. You were trying to find a job and nothing really came to fruition. I think a lot of spots got locked up. And yeah, you were kind of left without a job. So just talk about what that summer was like. I know you went through a lot of summers where it was year to year and it was stressful, and you held off, and you know, we want to maybe try your luck in North America, and you used it as I guess the platform to maybe find another job over in Europe. So talk about that year and how Germany all came about, the next chapter of your life, which is pretty cool if you think about it. That year, not having a job, and to, for that to start your kind of life where you are now, it's interesting. So yeah, just talk about you know, just that summer, and you know, have those trials you had.
Crazy summer again. So the team I'd played on in Norway basically was on the brink of bankruptcy, so they couldn't afford to bring imports back. So that closed that door. And then I even tried to go back to Morzine in France, and they told me that I had gone to a weaker league in Norway, so that basically they didn't think of me anymore as a goalie for them. And so yeah, it was a lot of emailing teams, you know, your dad and I trying everything. And then I started out, I went to Rapid City in the East Coast camp. Um, you know, going there as a free agent. I only lasted camp. I played well, but again, it's just the guys who are signed, guys who aren't. So left there, went home for a bit, was skating with the Cougars with your dad. And I remember Fayetteville Fire Ants in the SP.
Sounds like a minor league baseball team.
Oh my God. The minor league names. Here we go. They needed a goalie, and I was so not going there. And then I think what changed my mind was our buddy Corbs got traded from, I can't remember if it was Knoxville or Peoria, probably Peoria, to there. And I just kind of was at the point where I was like, you know what, screw it. Like, I'll go there, I'll play the year, and you know,
Did you
I'll go
guys
back.
camp together? Was he was at camp and
Well, no, like it was the season had started. So like
oh,
I went there and they had already played, I don't know, like 10 games or something. And that was kind of that was the only reason I went, was because I wanted to be with him. We ended up living together, which was great for the 2 weeks I was there. And it was good for me because it allowed me to play again and kind of just reset myself. And I was fortunate enough to be there for 4 games. I played 3 of them, and you know, travel in the SP is crazy. And luckily, I had our shortest one twice, so that was great. And we were treated really well. Like the people there really, you know, those SP teams, you know, they really just support the team and do everything for them, try to make life as easy as possible. So I can't say enough about the fan base there. And yeah, me and Corbs were together, and then randomly I remember your dad. I didn't even know he was still working. Like, this is just because, you know, your dad and how hardworking he is. Texts me and goes, "Hey, team in the Del 2 needs a goalie." And we had talked to him in the summer, and this had gone on for like 5 months. And I was just like, Mark, like, I don't need this. Like, don't bring this up unless there's a contract. And he's like, "No, I'm sending a contract tonight. Can you get on a flight tomorrow morning?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like, not believing any of it. And I remember the next morning we had to skate like somewhere random. We had to go like drive somewhere for Fayetteville. And I remember getting off the ice at nine in the morning and having a text from your dad being like, "Get the F on a plane," and having to pack up, go tell the coach that I was leaving, which didn't go over well, and fly from Fayetteville to Toronto. My parents met me at the airport. They literally brought stuff to the airport. So I literally landed, went through security, got my stuff, went back through security, got on a plane to Germany, landed there in Heilbronn. That was a Thursday morning or afternoon by the time I got there. So I didn't get to skate. Had to spend the whole day registering me to hopefully get my license done for the next day, because we were playing. Got to skate the next morning, meet all the guys. And then again, after that, like, it's, you know, you're talking about routine of a game day. Like, I'm running around, signing papers, finding every, you know, behind the scene way to get in my register done. Finally get back to my hotel, you know, have a quick nap, do my routine, get to the game. And we end up playing the third best team in the league, which was Castle. And, you know, what experience, I'll say, like, that was what I thought pro hockey was. You know, for everyone who's never seen German hockey, it's, you know, fans banging on the drums, like kind of that soccer atmosphere. And, I always thrived in that. So I remember that first game, we won 3-2 in overtime. We were the last place team beating the third place team, and I had 44 saves or something. And it was definitely an awesome memory. I have it screenshot on my phone coming out, and just having the red numbers of every app, like how many like notifications you have. And like, I've never had anything like it in my life. Like all the friend requests I had, all the messages from people coming out of the woods, like it really, I will say, it really had felt like I had made it at that point. Like that was a goal of mine, was to play in the Del 2, and I had made it. And the rest of that year was awesome. And the playdowns was I went beast mode. I think there I had that was the best year of my life. Like to be quite honest, in terms of playing, I really, everything went well for me, and I kind of was rewarded for all the hard work I'd put in that summer and all the kind of ups and downs. And yeah, we ended up playing Rosenheim and playdowns, and 6 games. I had a 1.5 goals against and a 95 save percentage. And that party after was amazing. And just kind of the feeling that I got from the fans was, this is because of you. Like, you're really important. And it's something that I'll never forget. And I think it's probably a big reason why I, end up calling Heilbronn home till now.
Yeah. That's a good feeling. And that's pretty unreal to think about, when you go that summer and you're starting that year and you have no job, and then you end up going to having the best year of your life, really. And that's where you met your future wife, and and that's where it all started, your life in Germany, which is pretty cool. And that was in Heilbronn. I don't know if we mentioned that was in Heilbronn, the Del 2, and a really good team and organization there. And you spent 2 seasons there, so you had obviously that really good year, and had the amazing playoffs. So it was you went in there on a 1-year deal, and then did you re-sign there for the next year?
Yeah. So, as I said, like, finished really well. And this is like we've talked before, this is where I kind of learned some lessons, just about, like, hockey in Germany, and just kind of dealing with things. So
Yeah.
I was expecting an offer probably within 2 weeks of being done, because I had just got MVP of this playdowns. I'd saved the team. I had the GM coming up to me being like, "Thank you so much. Like, you've saved us." Like, or they would have gone to the third league. And we had a new coach, and in Germany, you're only allowed 4 imports. So if you can have a German goalie, it really helps you, build your team. So, and I understood that, but at the same time, we were a low budget team. The season was basically over, so I don't think there was many guys left on the market. And I remember just hearing them like that they're shopping for other guys, and I just kind of took an offense to it. And then eventually got an offer, best offer I've had, but I felt like I was worth a lot more. And I remember just, kind of talking to your dad and being like, like I feel like this is a slap in the face after what I just did. And I kind of signed it, and I kind of had resentment, and I think that's never good, to kind of end your year. And that summer, you know, I wanted to, I don't know why I had this in my head, and it's a good lesson, is I was, you knew me, I was always a guy that quiet, like very prepared, went about my thing. I didn't drink much. I didn't party much, but for some reason that summer, I just wanted to really reinvent myself and kind of be like that beauty, and, be the guy who can go out with the guys always during the year. And so that summer, I just started, basically, that was my training. I had a couple, a bachelor for a buddy to prepare for. Basically every weekend I was boozing. I wasn't taking my training so seriously. And then I got hurt because of that. And so your training gets lightened. And I honestly, you know, it is what it is. But I went into that year thinking, my talent will get me by. Like, I just did this last year and I'll be fine. And I didn't put in the hard work that I had done the year before, and kind of threw everything away. And for multiple reasons, had a tough start, some mine, some other. And, once I did find my game, I ended up getting released. So it was a good lesson, basically 1 year to the day, the savior to the loser or whatever. And again, just kind of the mental thing. I ended up going back to Norway, went to a lower team that, wasn't probably the best thing to do, but I went there. I met some good people who I still talk to today, but it wasn't good for the hockey's perspective. And I, luckily, at the break there, at the kind of the trade deadline, as you would say in in Canada. Garmisch in the Del2 was looking for a third string goalie, and offered me if I would come, and I wanted so badly out of Norway and to go back to Germany. So I went, and you know, the rest is kind of history there. I kind of got a break where, we went into playoffs, and we were in the second round, and our starter got hurt. And then our other backup was up with the Dell team in Munich. So it was basically, they had to either play me or a 19-year-old who hadn't played yet. So I got thrown into the fire. I remember in game 3, getting a text when I woke up in the morning. As I said, I hadn't played a game in 2 months. And the text was, yeah, you're in tonight. And yeah, it was a great experience. We ended up going down to Kaufborn. That was game 4. We were down 2-1 in the series. We won 3-0. So I got a shutout. Then we won the next game in overtime, and then we won game 6. We went to the finals. So it was crazy for me to think of how that year went. And now I'm in the finals in the league I had started in, and the team that I used to play for wasn't there. And, the finals was a great experience. A lot of close games. Every game was 1 goal minus like an empty net. And unfortunately, we didn't get it done. But it really, or I thought it had really revitalized my career, like thinking, people are going to notice me. I just went to the finals of a very good league, so I should be good for next year. And for multiple reasons that wasn't true, but it was awesome to say that I, got to the finals in a league like the Del2.
For sure. I think lessons to be learned, I guess, in everyone's life, and kind of going through the pro career, you learn things as you go, and it's nice to acknowledge it and kind of be able to give that back to people so that they don't have to go through those same experiences. I mean, it's a fine line, I think, in summers, like, here you are after an unreal playoff, you're feeling good, and then if I think that those summers make a huge difference, like, going into your next year. And I think that's that sacrifice people talk about when you're whether it's when you're young or even at the pro level. Like, they always talk about at the young kids when drinking starts to be involved, and you're going through it, and you're going through high school. Like, you sacrifice now, it'll pay dividends in the end, and success, and then you'll be able to have the fun. And I think that's still true at a pro. Like, there's always guys trying to get jobs, and you always have to get better every year. And so you have to make sure you take care of that stuff. And it's nice, the past is the past, and you acknowledge things like that, and you pass it on to other kids going, who may go through that same trap, right? So it was nice you got that opportunity at the end with Garmisch there, and we're able to kind of play that playoffs. And yeah, I think just overlooking everything, pretty cool. You got to experience all these countries in your pro career. Like, not many people they've done that and experienced all these different cultures. After Garmisch, you went back to Heilbronn, and at this point you had met Leah, and you were living there. You guys got a house together there, and you wanted to keep playing while kind of transitioning into the hockey management side of things. So just talk about maybe your experience with the Ice Bear and Heilbronn, starting a lot. That's really where your life kind of started, in Heilbronn there. So what was that like for you?
Very different, I'll say, to be honest. Like, going from the second league to the fourth league, it's, basically I would compare it to senior A back home. Some guys take it serious, and other guys, it's just they work all day and they want to go play hockey at night. And still very competitive guys. And I, to be honest, I was treated great. Everyone was really nice to me. And as you said, I kind of had realized with being with my now wife, didn't really want to go anywhere else but Germany. So obviously I wasn't going to get a job in the Dell. The Dell 2 wasn't realistic anymore, and you can't play as a goalie in the third league as an import. So the fourth league, I just kind of decided, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have fun. It's 2 practices a week, 1 to 2 games a weekend. You stay in shape, get to play. And then I was going to transition I started in goalie coaching. So it was a good avenue for me, slowly get my name out there, learn the language too, because obviously, when you're dealing with 20-year-olds, they can speak English, but when you're dealing with 9-year-olds, there's not much English. So definitely a couple year transition period there, but that was good. And then opportunities just kind of came from that. Bietigheim, which is 20 minutes from Heilbronn, they needed a goalie coach in the Del 2. They obviously knew me because I'd played against them for 2 years. So Canadian coaches there, Hugo Boisvert and Marc St. Jean. So they obviously wanted to have another Canadian guy if they could. And that kind of got my foot in the door there. And it was, a good start for me. And, that year I ended up getting promoted to assistant coach as well. So I ended up, every weekend I was playing, a game for the Ice Baron and then, coaching 1 or 2 games for Bietigheim. So it was a busy time period. And I was just kind of along for the ride and, learned a lot, I'll say. Nowhere near ready to be an assistant coach. No clue about how much time it takes, skill development, all that. But
I
I was
remember, sorry, but I remember like getting texts from me like, yeah, I'm coaching now. I'm like, I'm on the bench now. I'm going on the bench tonight. I'm like, wait, what? You're like assistant coach? Like, where did that come from? I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, thrown right into the fire, and there's really no better way, I guess, to kind of learn something just to throw you in and go do it. I mean, there's no real pressure because you've never done it before, and that's but I remember you telling me that, and you're a man of many hats, I think, and that's what we'll get into in the second part of your hockey life. But yeah, coaching was one of them, and then that from Bietigheim, I think the next year you signed with Krimichow. Is that it? So you signed there to be assistant. I mean, for you, your goal is to. I know it's you want to be on the sport managing side of things, but I think you have to get your foot in the door, like you said. So coaching is an avenue, and you learn a bunch of things within that. So Krimichow was, I think that's where you first handled a bunch of different things, and you were able to learn a bunch of new things. So yeah, talk about your experience in Krimichow, and then we can get into Selb as well, because after a year in Krimichow, you went on to sign a contract with Selb.
Yeah, so at the end of that Bietigheim season was when Corona hit. So the next year, I had signed in Krimichow, and when they had reached out to me, I had already signed to go back to the Ice Baron. So Krimichow was like, "We're looking for an assistant coach and goalie coach," and I was like, "Well, I kind of already committed to these guys. They were always there for me. So is it possible just to be the goalie coach and I'll come 4 days every 2 weeks?" And they agreed. And um, that year, COVID was on and off, like playing with no fans. So a lot of teams weren't getting the revenue that they normally did. So I ended up in Krimichow that year. I stopped the goalie coaching, like going there in basically October because of COVID and budget cuts, I would say. Uh, Went on with the Falcon because I was just there. And then that summer, the coach that I had kind of befriended and got to know in Krimichow, he had resigned to go back. So he pushed for me to be the assistant. And I remember I signed there, and 3 days later, he texted me being like, "I've actually just got a different opportunity that's like unlimited, so I have to leave." So quick whirlwind there. And then they ended up hiring a new coach who was Marian Bazani. And you know, I I've learned so much from him. He's so a good friend of mine. We talk every week. He would tell you firsthand, I was not ready to be an assistant coach, at least on his level. This guy is very smart, sees the game tremendously well, and fast as well from the bench. And you know, we definitely had some up and downs at the start, getting used to each other. But then he brought in Alex Solzer, who longtime German national team player, played in the NHL. Great guy as well in Bremerhaven, now in the DL. And the three of us together, we really got along, and kind of everyone had their role. And I kind of got stepped back from the first assistant role there, and I was able just to kind of learn from them. And it sucks, to be honest, at times, because we were doing good in Krimichow when I kind of got demoted, I will say. But you also have to know, like, and just be honest with yourself, like if it's a bit too much for you, or if it's not the role that you see yourself in, you got to take a step back and try to learn. And that's what I was doing every day. I was trying to learn from them, skill development, how they see the game, why, just kind of being a sponge. And yeah, that went on until February. And then I ended up going to Selb, who was a new Del 2 team, because as you said, I want to be a sport manager, as they say over here, or general manager for North America. And Selb had said that they were looking for somebody, kind of a 3-year plan. And I went and did a presentation, and both kind of liked it, and we saw the team going the same way. So it was hard to leave Crimmitchow, honestly, because I did enjoy working with those guys. But at the same time, I kind of had to put myself first, and yeah, ended up going to Selb that year, and you know, late in the year you can't really do too much, but I was able to bring in one guy, and we ended up staying in the league. So that was a huge success for me. And then the whirlwind started after that.
Yeah, I remember the whirlwind after that. I don't know if we get into that, but I mean we can if you want, but I think, it's impressive. I think you've had to, you of anyone, I think I commend you just for the hockey road's never easy, and especially when you're navigating out of playing and you're trying to stay in the game, and let alone be in a different country. So for you to have to, learn a brand new language to be able to talk with these people and go do these presentations, because these presentations you're doing, I remember you sent me one and I was like, you did that? And I mean, like, I'm pretty sure they're in German, right? Like, you're talking to these guys in German when you have to do it for the most part.
It was mixed, yeah, but yeah, it was
Like,
you know
that's pretty impressive. So, yeah, Selb, I don't think it ended up being the greatest, experience overall, but like anything, lessons learned, and you learned a lot on the paperwork side of things. I think you wore probably 15 different hats there. You were doing everything, whether it was, if you want to talk a little bit about the exit there, I mean, and what that was like, you can, go for it.
no, it was just as you said, I learned a lot. I did wear a lot of hats. Very common in Germany, I think, especially in the lower leagues. Not to say that L2's lower, but yeah, I was doing everything from stuff in the office, going scouting, helping build a roster. Sometimes, I remember our equipment guy broke his wrist, so I had to go there and like do laundry some days because they didn't like, you couldn't do it. Go in net some days as a goalie, which is awesome, but cut video, everything. So it was, you get a lot of experiences, and obviously it ended up not going the way I think either of us managed or thought it would. But I've always believed to this day that good things happen to good people, especially if you do everything the right way, if you're hardworking and you genuinely deserve it. And I was looking pretty glim there for a little bit. I wasn't sure what was going to happen with my career, if I was going to sit this year, or if maybe try something else. Even thought about maybe going back and playing, but when one door closes, another one opens. So
Yeah, we'll get into that. I think it also gives you lessons on how to deal with different people. You obviously deal with different personalities, and you learn how to handle different situations. So being in those environments, whether it be an old school coach, it's a hard position to be in, I think, because I know you, and I know your blueprint for what a good team looks like, and it's hard to bite your tongue sometimes, I think, a lot of the time, and I think it's good to learn how to manage those situations. So yeah, I think you're one that mastered networking, and being able to do it in a different languages is pretty neat. So that networking led you to your next endeavor. You are now involved with the DL club Adler Mannheim, which is the top club in the German league. And I think, like you said, good things happen to good people, and you've paid your dues. And I think this is a really good spot for you. And you're on your path to what you want to do full time. So talk about this situation you're in now, and I think it's a lot better than what you've been in before. So yeah, talk about Mannheim and where you're at now.
I mean, you mentioned it. It's obviously a top DL organization, lots of history there. Your dad would be able to attest to that, playing against them, and guys like Todd Halushko, who your dad knows as well, long history there. But yeah, just very fortunate to have had someone as nice as the GM here, who just kind of stayed in contact over the years. I'm during Corona, it's kind of where it started. I went there one day and just gave a presentation and said, hey, I want to be the sport manager in Hellbron at the time because they were affiliated with them. Meeting this guy for the first time, just kind of threw everything out there and, definitely learned some things. And you brought it up, networking. So one of the questions he asked me at this time, so this would have been 3-4 years ago, was how's your network? And it means like, what types of players do you know? How many agents do you know? If I was to call people in these countries, would they know your name? And I was so new to it that I was honest and like, nope, probably not. But just gonna keep building. And basically, he was nice enough to tell me I could mesh them if I ever needed something. But obviously, I wasn't ready for a responsibility like that, which was totally true. And over the years, we just kind of stayed in contact. I'd see him at the rink. I'd talk to him. He was always so nice to me. Just a guy that would give you his time of day. And you felt sometimes like you should just cut the conversation short because you don't want to be wasting his time. And, he's got bigger and better things to worry about. And then, in the summer, or before the summer, sorry, there was the U18s in Switzerland this year. So the national tournament. And, he just kind of asked me, hey, would you have any interest going with me for a couple of days? And, I of course jumped at that opportunity and went and, learned so much about how he scouts, how he sees the game, how he wants to build his teams, just everything about hockey. I could pick his brain on anything. It was really good for me. And, at the end of this trip, he was asking me, okay, so of the players that you watched, give me ratings on all these guys. And just kind of, we just went over everything. And I just was very honest and kind of put my fear aside and was like, you know what, like, I'm not going to try to lie and try to just be a yes guy to this guy. Like if I don't like a player, I'm going to tell him because I think that's what he'll appreciate. And, we agreed on basically a lot of things, a lot of players and stuff. So it was good to see that we were kind of seeing the game the same way. And then this summer they were looking for a team manager. And obviously I'm 50 minutes from there and we had built a good relationship. And, kind of just, as I said, the cell door was closing and it was a kind of a no-brainer for me. And, I've been there about a month now or 3 weeks and it's been awesome. Just very, very different experience for me. It's a very great organization, very positive. Everyone's so friendly. Not afraid to speak English with you either, because obviously my German fluctuates at times. And just, I tell people this all the time. Like, I think everyone will enjoy or appreciate people wanting to hear your opinion, or at least just letting you present something. It doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean they have to listen to you. In the end, it's going to be their decision. Like the decisions are made above me, but these guys genuinely, hey Andrew, what do you think of this? Or hey, what'd you think of so and so? And they'll genuinely listen. Where I felt at other leagues, it was basically, to call it what it is, it's a dick measuring contest. Like who knows more, and it just creates a lot of negative energy. So I'm very happy to be there. It's been great so far, and so far we're at a good point in our season. We're 4-0-1 in the season and 3-0-1 in Champions League. So it's been awesome to be a part of that.
That's great to hear. I mean, it's amazing what just good people can do, for an environment. Like, and that's when they talk about winning cultures. I think it all starts from having good people at the top, and bringing in good people. I mean, you can say that as much as you want, but it's true. And you can tell when you're dealing with good people for could be the dead horse, but it makes a huge difference. And coming to the rink every day or coming to your work environment every day, I think like, this is the happiest I've seen you in a while. Just you being able to talk about going into the office and wanting to, and not being afraid or not having fear of, being judged or having your opinions actually heard and thought. I think that's a lesson for so many people. It's just, yeah, like you said, it's not how much I know and how much better my opinion is than yours. Like it should be a combined cumulative thing. And that's what brings out the best in organizations. So I think you're in a really good spot. You're dealing on the team management side of things. So, that's anywhere from all the paperwork for imports to I just talked about maybe what does that team management side of things what are you doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, so eventually, because this year was basically mostly planned, because I kind of came in when the season had kind of started. But yeah, taking care of all the travel stuff. So hotels, meals, flights, ice if when we go on the road, communicating with other team managers about, when they come to us, do they need food, do they need ice, when they can get in the dressing room, stuff like that. And then yeah, just trying to make the coaches and players' lives easier. So a lot of paperwork, a lot of government documents. I'm kind of the middle guy between the team and management in the office. So stuff that as you said, I'd done before and in other organizations. So it's great. I love being able to go in the room every day, joke with the guys, see how they're doing. Mannheim obviously has tremendous facilities. So as you said, you enjoy going to work every day. So I think that's what's good. And I'm looking forward to how it goes throughout the season. And then, next year if I end up staying, then yeah, I guess it'll be my turn to plan everything. So hopefully I can adjust to that.
Yeah, well, that's good because everything that you've learned kind of up until this, it's just prepared you for this kind of job. And I think you're still involved in the hockey side of things. I know that's the goal for you is to want to be able to build a team one day, and you're in the mix and you're seeing all those, and you're still able to scout games, right? You're watching every game and you're watching other people, so that's big, and I'm happy that you're finally your hard work has kind of paid off. So um yeah, I mean, an amazing career, hockey playing, and now into the management side of things. I think you have a lot to be proud of. What was it, 8 years, 8 years pro, 9 years pro? I think it's taking you different places, and like I said earlier, different cultures you're able to experience. And one of the big things that brought you was a new language, which is I'm still. I wish I was at your level. I'm 5 years in Switzerland now. This is my fifth year, and I should be. The Swiss are starting to get on me for not learning French. Um, but year one, I think the biggest thing for you is keeping that Duolingo streak alive. What's your Duolingo streak at? It's I saw it one
We're at
time.
we're at like 1,300 days or something right now.
I mean, I wish I could get onto that because I'll do like a week and then I'm like, I'll keep getting the notification and I was like, no, don't have time right now. Or so that's impressive in itself, and that's only obviously helped you embrace the culture more and be involved more with everyone in Germany, and obviously deal with the people we have to deal with on a daily basis, whether it's making phone calls for flights, for food. Just talk about that experience learning the new language and being able to learn the new language.
Yeah, I mean, like for anyone who's learned a second language, it's not easy. There's a point where you want to give up, and probably did Duolingo for 2 years, and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I've had a couple tutors since then, and the big thing for me, I think I was fortunate. My wife's parents don't speak English, so kind of gave you that drive to want to learn because you wanted them to get to know you. When they can't speak to you, they don't really get to know you as a person. They just hear, how you are through, through Leah and stuff. So that was a lot of practice. I'm sure if they could share, they would say that it wasn't very good at the start, and there was a lot of what did he just say kind of moments. But no, I put a lot of work into it. As I said, tutors. Did the B1 test last month and passed, so that's like the middle point. So I guess I'm like 60% or something fluent, which is good. But yeah, it's just we talked about before, like taking stuff from each experience. So when I went to Selb, being in the office every day, you're having to read paperwork that's only German. You're having to speak to people in there who don't speak English. So it really like was good practice for me, as well with goalie coaching kids. As I said, so it just kind of gets your confidence. And that's the big thing with the language, I felt, is just being confident and understanding that you're probably going to make a mistake. You're probably going to have an accent. You're probably not going to say it in the right grammatical order. But if you just embrace that, people will understand you. And I still, to this day, I'll speak to someone in German and they'll immediately switch to English because they can hear my accent, or I put one word out of order, pisses me off. But
That's my thing. because I try, like you'll have the confidence, you build up the confidence to go try, and then they'll tell right away, and then they're like right away in English. I'm like, oh, okay, fuck me, right? Like I'm just
Yeah.
tried, or I get myself in situations where I don't know the next question, so I can be like that's all I got. Okay, let's go English now. But no, I'm sure that helps huge, and it's impressive. So good for you for learning that, and I'm sure it's probably a lot of new possibilities just within the country living there and being able to navigate that world. So yeah, just kind of you know, moving on, just kind of where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, you've paid your due, you've done, you've got your foot in the door. It's been in the door for a while, and I think you're in the right spot. You're learning, and you're going towards that end goal. But where in 5 years, 5 to 7 years, do you see yourself one day?
Yeah, hopefully still working in hockey, obviously now being in the DL. I hope I can still be in this league. Right now I'm enjoying everything in Mannheim, so hopefully I can be in maybe a higher role there. Maybe assistant GM or something. Still, there's still so much to learn, but yeah, I want to stay in hockey. I just feel that can't see myself really doing anything else, and I just have that drive to, be at the rink every day, whether watch hockey when I'm at home, go scouting, stuff like that. So I think when you have something that you really do enjoy, you got to put all you can into it. And there was definitely times during my management career, coaching career, whatever you want to call it, where I was kind of thinking the road could be over and might have to go do something else, but definitely not going to take it for granted. Took some things in my playing career for granted, and trying not to do that in round two in the coaching management career.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think for those listening, I think it's important. I get lessons you can take from your career. Well, for me too, is just, yeah, to never give up, and reaching out to people and emailing, because you've had to do that a lot of yourself, right? And so that's not being afraid to reach out for conversation, or talk to different people. I think a couple of guests have mentioned that. I think Larry Mitchell mentioned that, but yeah, that's what keeps it going. You never know who you're going to talk to, or the opportunity that'll present itself. If it doesn't work out, I think you've built up a pretty, maybe hopefully a good following. But I know this is whether or not it's a good following or not. Oh man, my low battery on my Mac. I'm gonna get my charger in here. But this podcast, I think it's a really good platform. We're just not good on the social media side of things, and to try and get it out to a larger audience, we need like some. But I think it's a really good platform, and you've had some really good guests on. You're really good at it. I'm probably butchering it right now, but I think you're really good at asking the right questions, and just getting into guys different their paths and throughout hockey. Yeah, just talk about the Pro Hockey Pod and how this came about, because I know it is important for guys who are playing and who are not, just to have hobbies outside of their actual job. And I remember you reached out to me about this pod. And I thought it was a great idea. We were going to be co-hosts, but I just didn't think I'd had the time or the energy. But I think you're better off on your own. You're better suited on your own. Talk about the Pro Hockey Pod.
Pro Hockey Pod just kind of was a random idea. Kind of when I was transitioning out of Cell there at the end of last year, and just kind of, as you said, like, it's good to have a hobby, and I've always been interested in podcasts. I listen to a lot of them, and never thought I would do 31 episodes, hopefully more, but just kind of, it started out as a hockey, your standard hockey podcast, and I just felt like that would be a lot of effort to try to compete with the big ones out there. So I thought, what could I base mine off of if I had to narrow it down to a topic? And for me, I love hearing people's stories. I genuinely, whether I know the people or not, I want to hear what they went through. How was this? How was that? Like, it's not just, going over it just to say I did it. And every week, it's not like my Duolingo streak where I just sometimes do it to do it. But no, and I thought it was cool because everyone, I think people like talking about what they've been through, and it also takes them down memory lane and kind of brings back memories. So yeah, hopefully everybody likes doing it, like sharing what they share. And also, like, I hope I can get a following where, the younger generation guys coming up through kind of scenarios that we went through, can understand there's not one path to get to your end goal. Everybody's end goal is different. It's not just the NHL. And hopefully, if I can change or help, at least one person that, maybe one day they'll look back and say, yeah, I remember hearing this on the Pro Hockey Pod or something. I think that's a win.
No, 100%. And that's great. I think there's a lot of good advice. I've listened, like I said, to most of the episodes, and I hope young people can hear it. And I think, for the most, well, yeah, I hope it can get a good following. It's really good knowledge. But yeah, so let's there's a couple big questions you usually ask your guests. So I think we'll get into those. Did you think you would have the career you have had? When looking back on everything, now it's all said and done, did you think you'd have the career you'd have?
I mean, I think everyone would say, honestly, should say no, because we all believed we would be in the NHL. I remember being in your basement playing NHL 03, and we would create ourselves and, play with the Cleveland Cobras and all that. And we that was our dream, was, one day we're going to be in this game. One of us got to achieve that, which is awesome. But yeah, no, I'm happy for everything that I got to do in my playing career. As I said, I learned a lot, and it's easy to look back and to tell yourself, oh, I wish I did this differently. But that's not realistic. It's you make these decisions on the fly, and you got to live with the decision as well. So definitely happy with everything I accomplished, and happy that I get to continue it now and behind the scenes in management.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's everything that you go through in life. It's all building you to, I mean, yeah, like you said, you make decisions and you live with them, and you can't look back with regret, and you learn things as you go. So I think you've made out one hell of a career for yourself, and it's still going on the management side of things. And I think, bigger things are coming your way. So, and now the big question that you always ask, I think you could have a good answer, is what is one piece of advice, or multiple, you would give your younger self? So if you're looking back at Andrew Hare, 16, 17, what would you give that version of yourself, with having your experiences now?
Might have to adjust this question because it actually does stump a lot of people, and now I'm feeling it. But I think just kind of like, I have a similar opinion to a lot of our guests. If you tie a lot of their answers together, is um, you know, just love the game. You want to enjoy doing it and never take it for granted. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, there's other things like, hard work, multiple sports, enjoying life as well. But I think, the people who have success at this game, they genuinely enjoy it, and they want to go to the rink, go to the gym every day. They have a smile on their face, and as long as you can say that you genuinely enjoy the game, it's going to create positive outcomes for you, both on and off the ice. When it starts getting to a point where you don't enjoy it anymore, then you need to start to think like, how do I change this back into a positive, or maybe I try a different avenue. And um, a lot of kids out there, it's so cliche to say that, but it's true. You want to have fun playing this game. That's why we started it when we were kids. We didn't start playing this game because we had to. Like, we were given a chance to try it. We had fun. I remember being 3 years old, or going to our little, whatever it was called, like the pike games, and you're playing in a zone in the rink. And I remember thinking it was the greatest thing ever, and that my parents were watching, and it just brings a smile back to your face. So that would be the biggest advice. Enjoy playing the game, and enjoy everything that comes along with it, because there will be a point, like when you're at our age, where you look back and think, man, what a time.
Yeah, no doubt. That is great advice. And then, like you said, I think a lot of the guys that you've had give similar answers. I think that was one piece of my advice, is just to have fun. But it's so true. We look back on just being young, and you know, battling out there on the ponds and stuff. And it's just a game in the end. And there's so many factors that as you get older, as you go through the pro ranks to take shots at that and, to make it political, to make it a job. But if you can remind yourself you're playing a game for a living, and it doesn't matter how much money you're making, like it's pretty cool at the end of the day. We only got one life, and to be able to play a game, and one you were playing when you were younger, and you're making money and you're experiencing different countries and wherever you're playing, I think it's just if you can remind yourself of that, we're pretty lucky, and we should be grateful for that. So good advice. And yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. What are we at? An hour and a bit here? An hour and 20, hour and a half?
Not sure. Or how was your first experience being a host there, Juice
Man,
Man?
it was good. I don't know. How do I do? I think it's tougher than you think. I think we had a couple hiccups where I had to pause. I think you're really good at acknowledging, like, after someone says a question or an answer, after they answer a question, it's just acknowledging that answer and then to go on to the next thing. I think you've mastered that. I think it is a skill for sure. You have to learn it, but I think we did all right.
Yeah, it was good. I was happy to be able to share my story, and maybe down the road, as we said, there could be some episodes where we actually co-host somebody that we both know and kind of have our own questions, or we talked about off camera before. I would love to do one day, maybe next summer, we do a doc episode, up in Muskoka, maybe me, you, and your dad or somebody, and just kind of share stories. And
Yeah, I'd like that, because there's a lot of cool we talk about our paths and stuff, and then the minor hockey, but I think there's a lot more in between the cracks. Well, there's stories here and there about different people we've played with, or we can maybe get into a little bit, which would be entertaining too. But no, I'm happy I was able to do this. I reached out to you saying that 31's coming up, we should maybe give you a chance, because you've done it for everyone, and like you said, it is nice to go down memory lane. And for me, when you had me on, I said right after, I was like, man, that was fun. Like, it's so cool. You don't think about that often, to go through every kind of chapter of your career. So I hope you got to enjoy that and feel what I felt. So and you have a great story. I mean, it wasn't always the easiest, but you've persevered. There's so many adversities you and Leah have had to go through in the hockey world. I mean, shout out to Leah. She's been a rock for you through it all. So it's not the easiest, man, mentally. And I think you've come out a better version, a better person, and way more knowledgeable. And I think like I've said before, the best is yet to come. So thanks for letting me host. It was fun, and hopefully I can get back on here one time.
yeah, man, I appreciate you doing it. First time, you did a good job. And yeah, it was cool to, as you said, tell my story. Brings back a lot of memories, and being on the other side of this has been unique as well. But there's only one way to end this, and I'll let you do it. So take it away.
Okay, appreciate it. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. And until next time, juice and chow.